You ever see a grown man in uniform yank a black woman's hair like it's still 1952, then find himself in handcuffs not 5 minutes later? Yeah, that happened. And what made it better? He didn't just get arrested, he got exposed by the very woman he thought he could humiliate in silence. It all started on one of those crisp fall mornings where the air feels sharp enough to cut right through your coat. The courthouse lawn was wrapped in mist, golden leaves stuck to wet sidewalks like the city itself was holding its breath. And down that path came Judge Malika Grant, tall, poised, wrapped in a gray wool coat with the kind of walk that didn't need noise to be noticed. No coffee in hand, no phone. Just a leather briefcase and a presence that turned heads without asking for permission. She wasn't new here. In fact, she'd presided over this courthouse for 6 years. But to Officer Ryan Holtz, she was just another black woman walking through his checkpoint with natural curls and no visible ID badge. He didn't recognize her, and that was his first mistake. "Ma'am," he barked, dragging the word like it offended him. "Step out of line." She paused, didn't flinch, didn't argue, just looked him straight in the eye and asked calmly, "Is there a problem?" Holtz stepped closer. Coffee breath, clenched jaw, puffed chest. The kind of guy who thinks the badge on his chest is a license to dominate, not protect. "No badge, no entry," he grunted loud enough for the folks in line to turn their heads. Malika pulled her federal ID from her coat pocket, clear, official, and held out with 2 fingers like it was too clean for his hands. "This should suffice," she said, steady as stone. But Holtz didn't even glance at it. He snatched it, shoved it in his pocket like she handed him a parking receipt, then looked right past her like she'd vanished. That was mistake number 2. "I'd like that returned," she said, still not loud, just firm. He smiled. Not the kind that comes from joy, more like the smirk of someone who's never had to answer for anything in his life. "You in a rush, sweetheart?" That word hung in the air like rot. A younger female officer stood near the scanner. Rookie, judging by the wide eyes and stiff posture. She didn't say a word, just watched. "I'm due in courtroom 7, Malika said, tone cool, hands relaxed. But her eyes? They weren't calm, they were calculating. Holtz stepped in closer, violated her space, flexed his authority. "Then you'll follow my procedure," he snapped. "Random check. This way." Now Malika had choices. She could raise hell right there, or she could wait, let him go just far enough to undo himself. She followed, down a sterile hallway with flickering fluorescence and silence so thick you could feel the weight of every unspoken warning. He led her to a small beige room, bare walls, metal chair in the center, the kind of room that says, "You don't matter here." "This is unnecessary," she said. "You have no legal grounds." He didn't reply, just pointed at the chair. And when she didn't move, he moved behind her and yanked her hair back without warning. Her head snapped, her breath caught, but she didn't scream. She didn't give him that satisfaction. She stood her ground, clenched her jaw, and said through her teeth, "Get your hands off me." He chuckled. "You people get so sensitive." And that was mistake number 3. He tossed her ID on the desk like trash. "You're free to go," he said. She picked it up, smoothed her hair, and walked away, silent, but on fire. And if Holtz had any sense of self-preservation, he would have felt it. But he didn't. He just leaned back in his chair, smug as ever. Malika didn't go home, didn't cry. She walked to the judge's chambers, put on her black robe like armor, and stepped into courtroom 7, not just as a judge, but as a reckoning. She walked in alone, no clerk, no announcement. Just the soft click of heels and the silent scream of every woman who'd ever been told to swallow injustice in the name of professionalism. The courtroom shifted. People leaned in, not knowing why, just feeling something had changed. She sat, graceful, composed, then turned to the clerk and said, "Is the docket ready?" "Yes, Your Honor," the clerk stammered. "Then let's proceed." But she wasn't here to try a case. Not today. She had something else. "Call Deputy Ryan Holtz." You could hear the blood drain from his face before his name even finished echoing across the chamber. He walked in like a man headed to his own funeral, slow steps, clenched jaw, suddenly aware that he no longer controlled the room. "State your name and position," Malika said, not even bothering to look at him. "Ryan Holtz, courthouse deputy," he muttered. How long have you worked here? 13 years, ma'am, Your Honor. And in those 13 years, how many times have you randomly searched a presiding judge? Silence. Someone in the gallery gasped. Holtz twitched. I didn't know. Exactly, she said, cutting him off. You didn't care to know. And just like that, 2 federal marshals stepped forward and cuffed him, right there, in front of the same gallery he used to strut past every morning. But that wasn't the end. Malika opened a leather folder, dozens of complaint forms, black women, Latina women, young women, descriptions of harassment, humiliation, violations, all signed, dated, filed away, ignored. One memo even said, Holtz's tone is unpleasant but effective. Let's not escalate unless media gets involved. Yeah, they got involved now. Malika stood and raised another document. This is the Prescott Directive, she said. Effective immediately, mandatory anti-bias training, quarterly reviews, zero tolerance for discrimination in any courthouse under my jurisdiction. No applause, no cheers, just silence, the kind that means something. Outside, a small crowd had gathered. Not protesters, just people. Ordinary folks who'd heard what happened and came to see it change. And when Malika stepped out, robe flowing, face steady, they didn't chant. They rose, like the truth itself had just walked out the front door. You see, this wasn't just about a bad cop or a violated judge. It was about finally ripping the mask off a system that told too many women, too many times, to sit down, shut up, and be professional. And today, that mask got burned, because justice didn't come in a press release. She came in heels, and she remembered every face that looked the other way. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Was this justice, or was this just the beginning? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Was Malika right to let him walk into court before revealing who she was? Or should she have shut it down at the door? Hit, like if you felt that courtroom shift, share if you believe silence isn't neutrality, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that don't whisper, they wake you up.